Here are the top 10 greatest games for the Sega 32X add-on, according to fans of the 32X. Number 10 is Kolibri. This is exclusive to the 32X and is one of the best hummingbird shooters on the system. Your main goal is to destroy a dark crystal that is sickening the earth. To do that, you have to shoot enemies and solve puzzles. It was designed by the same person who designed Echo the Dolphin, and if I hadn't told you that, you might be able to guess it just by the overall mood of the game and the fact that the hummingbird controls a lot like Echo does. What sticks to people's minds the most, or at least mine, are the colorful visuals. Some of the stages look like they're taking place within a big painting. Number 9 is Blackthorne. In this, you have to free your people from the evil Sarlacc, which is not related to that hole in the ground. It was originally developed for the Super Nintendo and MS-DOS computers. This version came out a year later and includes a new level, and they replaced the hand-drawn sprites from those earlier versions with pre-rendered ones. It plays like some of the old Prince of Persia games, where your character feels heavy, and you have to be careful with every movement as you attempt to get through the maze-like levels. It's a challenging game with nice animation and a very unique entry in the 32X library. So, how did I come up with this list? I went to various places on the internet where people were talking about their personal favorite 32X games. I found those conversations on Reddit, on YouTube, and on gaming site message boards. I also asked my own audience for their input. I entered the names of the games that were being mentioned in all those places into a spreadsheet, did some analysis, which I used to create the ranked list you are seeing today. My own opinions did not factor into these rankings. I'm just delivering to you what the data shows. And by the way, I did all this work manually without the use of AI, and despite some of your accusations, I am not an AI voiceover. The only AI model I trust is this one. I do hope you like this video. Let's get on with it. Number 8 is Mortal Kombat 2. This hit arcade game had already been out on the Super Nintendo and Genesis. Of those two, the Super Nintendo had the upper hand in the graphics and sound department, but some have said that the Genesis version had better controls. This 32X port came out a year later, and it's a slightly enhanced version of the one on the Genesis. The boost in graphics is enough to make it look comparable to the Super Nintendo one, but it maintains the controls of the Genesis one. Additionally, it doesn't have the loading times that the PS1 and Saturn versions had when they came out a year later. With all that in mind, many people have proclaimed this 32X port to be the best home version from that time period.
Scorpion wings. Fatality.
Number 7 is Star Wars Arcade. People often mistake this as a port of the famous 1983 arcade game that used vector graphics, but this is actually a port of a 1993 arcade game that mostly stayed in Japan. When you press start, you can choose between the original arcade game or the 32X mode, which adds 4 additional levels. This was astonishing to look at in 1994, as it was obviously displaying 3D graphics that could not have been done on the stock Genesis. That goes for the music too. It sounds like it's straight from the movies, though I do have to replace the audio in this video to prevent any Imperial copyright strikes. Launching the 32X with this game was a very smart decision. Number 6 is Doom. I'll speak from my own experiences with this one. I got this game at the same time I got the 32X in 1994, and I played it for days. I could not believe I was playing this type of game at home, and it helped foment my love for first-person shooters. I still play those types of games today. In fact, my third YouTube channel is all about the Killzone series. Looking back at this game nowadays, I realize it was a compromised port, but still at the time I could feel the leap in technology that was going on. And it was all coming from this little mushroom device on top of my Genesis. Number 5 is Afterburner. It was a very confusing time for Sega, which is evidenced by the number of names that this one had. At some point in development, it was called Super Afterburner, but on the title screen of the final game here, it shows a Roman numeral 2, meaning it was a port of the Afterburner 2 arcade game, which it was, but as the title screen continues, it eventually says Afterburner Complete, which is what the box says, unless you bought it in North America, where it just says Afterburner. Well, whatever the fuck it's called, it's a ferocious, adrenaline-pumping arcade port that people enjoy. Number 4 is Space Harrier. Dragonland has been taken over by the evil Valda. As the last sentinel of Dragonland, you pick up a jetpack, fly forward, and begin pushing the enemy out, like the way bartenders push me out the door at 3 a.m. Speaking from my personal experience, I can say that this game puts me in a cheerful mood, with its brightly colored graphics, calming music, and the positive vibes coming from the announcer.
Welcome to the fantasy zone. Get ready.
And I like how there's nothing complicated about it. No special moves, no collectibles, no mazes, just the player moving forward, dodging things, and shooting things. Number 3 is Virtua Fighter. The impact of the original Virtua Fighter arcade game cannot be overstated. It gave birth to the 3D fighting genre, but also popularized 3D games in general. Its success even convinced Sony to make the PS1 hardware internals more focused on 3D graphics instead of 2D ones. This port came out 2 years after the arcade, and they obviously had to reduce the graphics to make the game run on the mushroom, but the soul of Virtua Fighter is still here. It still has the 8 selectable fighters, each with their own set of moves, and the game is praised for being more stable than the Sega Saturn version. Before we get to numbers 2 and 1, let's go over some honorable mentions. These are games that barely missed being in this top 10. I'm just going to read them off in no particular order. NBA Jam Tournament Edition. Tempo. Metalhead. Zaxxon's Motherbase 2000. WWF Wrestlemania, the arcade game. And finally, Shadow Squadron. Number 2 is Knuckles Chaotix. This is a polarizing game for fans of the 2D Sonic the Hedgehog games. Some consider it a flop. Technically, all the 32X games are flops, but some consider the game underrated. And some would just like to have a legit way to play it, because Sega has never re-released it, and the cartridge alone sells for about 130 bucks. It's very different from the other Sonic games because it has a tether mechanic, where you basically have to drag around another character the entire time. It doesn't appeal to everybody, but enough people like the game to push it into the number 2 slot on this list. And what cannot be argued is how beautiful the game looks with its pastel colors. Number 1 is BC Racers. As it turns out, the 32X hardware is good at running kart racing games. And in this case, it's a very different kart racing game. There's a Flintstones-like theme where cavemen and cavewomen are racing against each other and against dinosaurs. It's charming, but it's the precise controls that deliver it across the first place finish line on this list. Actually, this is a fake out. I put these on my top 10s to make your life interesting. BC Racers does not belong on this list because it's a horrendous game, and I lied about the precise controls. The real number one is actually Virtua Racing Deluxe. Like I said for Virtua Fighter, Space Harrier, and Afterburner, this is a decent port of an arcade hit. It has Deluxe in the name because it adds some extras like 2 additional tracks and 2 additional cars. There are some, not all, but some who prefer this version over the Sega Saturn version because the controls are tighter and there's no loading screens. It doesn't have as good graphics or as good a frame rate as the Saturn version, but it's the 32X, so you gotta cut it some slack. So men, get your mushroom out and start playing with it. Before you do that, watch some of my other top 10 videos on this channel. I have over 30 of them on this channel, and in the future, I'm gonna have a lot more. See you next time.